I mean,
Well, would an AGI need to be self-aware?
well, again, these words become vague. So this is where what Chalmers called the hard problem of consciousness comes in, wherein there's the experiential aspect of consciousness, or the raw feeling of being there, or of being,
Mm.
of experiencing. Then there's the kind of structural aspect of consciousness, which is just, in fact, what data does the system attend to? What internal processes does the system attend to and register at any given point in time? So when you say self-aware, there's an experiential sense to that, of the raw feeling of feeling that you're there. But then there's also a kind of logical, structural sense to that, in terms of, does the system record data in its brain or in its hard drive pertaining to what its body is doing, or what dynamics are happening in its memory? And these two aspects of consciousness, clearly they're different in terms of common conversational practice. I mean, some folks like Daniel Dennett claim that the former, the raw experiential feel of consciousness, is pretty much bullshit, right? And Chalmers thinks it's a hard problem to reconcile those two, to connect between them. I mean, I think if you take a panpsychist view, that everything in the universe essentially is made of consciousness and has the stuff of consciousness in it, then there's no hard problem, because you don't need to connect two different things, because there aren't two different things. The material stuff, the structures of self-awareness and reflective thinking are made of the same consciousness stuff that everything else is. So Galen Strawson, an academic philosopher, wrote a bunch of articles on panpsychism, and gathered together one of his articles, some arguments against it, and then his rebuttals into a book. And I think he made a fairly strong argument that panpsychism is sort of the only philosophy of consciousness that's not plagued with obvious logical problems.
Mm.
The only problem it has is that in Western cultures we find it unnatural. Yet, if you go to Japan or China, panpsychism is almost just common sense.
Mm. Like, I guess people see panpsychism as a form of animism, and like it's to me it sort of it sounds like what people would believe, like the spirit in the river, or the spirit in the tree, and it. But I think that might be different, because that's kind of trying to anthropomorphize the world
Yeah, I
and
mean
objects around.
that's one kind of panpsychism. But I mean, just as physicalism, the idea that everything is physical, doesn't imply the clockwork universe of Laplace. I mean, the clockwork universe is a simple version of physicalism. Quantum mechanics is a more complex version, and
Mm.
animism is a very simple version of panpsychism, right? The idea that not only is everything is conscious, but it has a human-like personality. I mean,
Mm.
that's, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't believe that, but that's not logically entailed by panpsychism. And I think the panpsychism of, say, the medieval Buddhist logicians,
Mm.
it's not this simplistic kind either. I mean, they had a quite refined theory of it.
Yeah, it's quite amazing that yeah, the sort of level of philosophy that that India had at those times, and the East. It's quite interesting. I really should read a bit more about it.
Have you been to India?
No, no, my
Yeah,
brother has.
fascinating place. I think
Yeah,
we'll do a Humanity Plus conference there one of these years.
yeah. I reckon it would be good to do so. I mean, especially India, because I think a lot of their history has been sort of like that has had these ideas sort of circulate through their customs and their way of life.
Yeah.
So it'd probably gel very well in a
As
big
has
way.
China. So I mean, I think in a different way, but they've,
Yeah.
for example, the Chinese have immortality kind of woven through their culture. The
Yeah,
Taoists had all kinds of
Taoists
weird
and Confucianism.
recipes for immortality. So
Taoists.
they don't have the idea that many Westerners have, like death is natural and we are supposed to die because it's a natural order of things. You know?
Yeah, I get that. That's yeah, that would probably really work. I mean, you'd be speaking to people whose culture had sort of accepted these notions for quite a long period of time. So,
And they sure love robots over there too.
well, yeah, especially in Japan.
The Chinese and Koreans do too.
Yeah, the
All,
Koreans and the Chinese. Yeah, yeah,
they don't have as many industrial robots in China, of course,
yeah.
because they have such cheap human labor. But I mean, people get so excited by cute little robots there. It's really striking.
Mm. But they are cute. I like the now robots. I want one.
Yeah.
I can't afford one.
Have
That's a
you
problem.
seen Hanson Robotics' new robots? They're very cute also, probably cuter. They're like a now with an emotionally expressive human face.
I've seen Cynthia Brazil's robots, and I've seen Now's. I
No,
might have
no,
seen.
Hanson Robotics.
I'll have to look at that.
Yeah. They're expensive, just like the nows.
Yeah, yeah. I'd like a Kismet as well, but yeah, I can't really justify the costs. Where are we at with life extension? Are you taking what Gregory Benford's new pill? What is it called?
Stem Cell 100. I haven't taken it yet. I'm not a big supplements guy, though.
Stem Cell 1000. Yeah, that's right.
100 actually. Stem Cell 100.
Stem Cell 100. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, he came over to speak at the Singularity Summit, well, the first Singularity Summit in
Yeah.
Australia.
I mean, we're working together in Genescient, and
That's
the
right.
results look interesting. I mean, that does seem to extend the life of flies considerably. So I think it's there certainly is real promise there.
Yeah, you mentioned that it looks as though it might be a bit difficult to develop a lot of the life extension pills or techniques without having an extremely strong AGI behind the scenes. I think as part of your Singularity Summit talk, like we might need artificial general intelligence in order to work out the complexity of biology.
Well, I think we could get there without AGIs. It may just be slower. I mean, if an AGI could compress 50 years of biology research into 10 years,
Mm,
that would be something, right? I mean, there's a lot of data online. No human mind can ingest all that data and understand it.
mm,
And an AGI could be built to analyze molecular biology data as its core function rather
mm,
than using a brain that was evolved to be a caveman to analyze this data, which is totally different than anything our brains are supposed to do. I mean, think about data visualization. What is this? We're taking some high dimensional data about things like the inside of a molecule or stars in the sky, and we're projecting this high dimensional complex data into some picture that we can see because our eyes evolved to look at pictures, not
mm,
because it's really a natural way to represent the data.
mm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I think even if an AGI was not smarter than people generically, just the fact that it could be adapted to molecular biology and systems biology rather than adapted to getting food and sex in the African savannah. I mean that would give it a huge advantage. So there's no question in my mind we'll see a big acceleration of progress toward life extension once we have AGIs. On the other hand, I think before that, we can make progress by coupling together AI programs that are narrow AI or proto AGI programs
Hmm.
and coupling those together with traditional biological techniques, with lab work, with experimental evolution, and so forth.
Wow. Another very difficult problem seems to be the environment and geoengineering. and getting the right sort of balance happening there. Do you think AGI would be able to help with that sort of phenomena?
Together with nanotech, I mean, imagine swarms of little robots going around and
Mm.
actually
Yep.
physically affecting the environment. But then, who controls that swarm of robots? I mean, you're not going to have a human controller, remote control each one, and having a swarm of dumb robots go around affecting the environment
Mm.
could cause a lot of problems. So you could argue that you would need an AGI to control the swarm of environment improving nanobots in a responsible way.
Mm. Yeah, very interesting. That's a big topic. But look, I appreciate your time, yeah, and I look forward to catching up with you again.
Yeah, you mentioned ethics actually. So there's one topic about AGI ethics that I've been thinking about a bunch.
Oh yes.
I'm actually I don't have the best answer in the world now, so I'm interested for you or anyone else to help brainstorm about it. Actually,
Well,
Joel Pitt and I are writing a paper on this, and
wow, that's interesting.
the basic question is the relation between open source development and
Hmm.
AGI ethics. I mean, some people think it's 100% obvious that doing AGI open source is ethically idiotic, and because some evil guys will just take the open source software and fork it to make some evil AI that will kill everybody.
Hmm.
On the other hand, others feel it's likely ethically beneficial to make open source AGI because it means no elite group is going to control it and use it for their own ends, but instead it's going to be the property of humanity as a whole and is going to be developed with many eyes looking at it to look out for problems.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
it kind of seems to come down to how sudden do you think AGI development is going to be? Like if it's the case, you could take a kind of stupid AGI code base and apply some new algorithm you thought of and suddenly turn it into a super genius AGI. Then the risk is larger. Whereas if the development is going to be a little more gradual, then the risk is lower.
Hmm. It's very hard to know how that will
Yeah,
span
yeah.
out.
So
Yeah.
we've been trying to think through all the different dimensions of that
You've
question and writing a long
you've
paper on.